Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the COVID Task Force meeting for Wednesday, the 24th of June. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to start this morning by looking at the numbers across the state and see exactly where we are. Today, the number of infected individuals in the state of Florida has climbed to 103,000. It grew by almost 3,000 cases overnight. And if I thought it might be interesting just to take a look and do a comparison. So I went back 7 days to the data that we had collected for the 17th, reported on the 18th. And we've seen an increase in that 7-day period of right over 21,000 new cases here in Florida, which means that we're averaging about 3,000 new cases per day. Now, you'll remember back before the governor entered phase 1 and we had reached a point of stability because of all the restrictions on travel, mobility, restrictions on what was open and what was closed. We were averaging maybe 300 new cases a day. And so we've seen a really significant difference in the number of new cases as we further open up the county, the state, and Regency Oaks. Here in Pinellas County, we've had 3,971 new cases. That's up over yesterday as well. Our fatalities here in Pinellas County are only at 129. And just to give you a sort of a comparison, we saw in Pinellas County yesterday an increase of about 300 cases overnight. Sort of what the state was seeing prior to the opening of phase 1. Although we only had 300 new cases with 129 fatalities, we only jumped in deaths by 12. And so what we're seeing is as people are going out and they are getting exposed and the number of new cases or those who are ill is increasing, the fatalities are remaining relatively stable. And that is one piece of the puzzle. The second piece that we always have to evaluate is what happens in an at-risk population like those individuals who live here at Regency Oaks. They're more vulnerable, they're more susceptible, and they are at a higher risk. And so precautions continue to be necessary here at Regency Oaks. In the United States, we're at 2,347,000 cases, and we've had 121,000 Americans lose their life to this virus. We are in day 20 of phase 2. The governor is not showing any signs that he is ready to move forward. In fact, he was on yesterday urging more caution, wearing of masks, improved social distancing as mobility increases throughout the state of Florida. Testing continues to move forward, but very slowly. We're up to 77,000 tested with about a 5% infection rate. So that number has bumped up as well from low 3s prior to reopening to the 5s now that we have in fact reopened the state of Florida. Hospitalizations here in Pinellas County are at 616, and there are 68 in our specific zip code. We'll continue to look at these numbers. This is the leading indicators of what we can look at to try to predict what next week and the week after will look like, and it helps us in being able to formulate what Regency Oaks is able to do next in terms of lifting or removing restrictions. If we look at quarantine, there are currently 25 residents that are being watched. There are 0 in the assisted living, 4 in the skilled nursing, and the rest are here at Regency Oaks in the independent living. The vast majority of these are because of post-hospitalizations. Someone went out, had a procedure, they're on a 14-day quarantine upon return. Travel restrictions, again, 14-day restrictions upon return. And there are a couple in there who are showing signs and symptoms either of flu or potentially something else that we're monitoring. One of the things that has changed over the last maybe 36 hours is for the first time we are monitoring more than a couple of staff members. The number of staff members that we are monitoring is now up to 10, and these are individuals who have flu-like symptoms or could possibly had an exposure, and so all of them are on self-imposed quarantine at home, being tested for the virus, and will not be allowed to return to work until we have a resolution of their situation. One of the things that you may have seen in the news is the population of individuals who are impacted by COVID seems to be shifting. They have always, from the start, worried that the most vulnerable population would also be the highest risk. And we saw that in the early numbers, particularly in nursing homes in Seattle and New York, where the fatalities initially were of the very old and the very frail. What we saw in the mid stage of this process is we started to see adults who were between the ages of 45 and 70 contract the disease. They were the number one age group of individuals who were impacted, and experts believe it was because those were the ones who were still working, still going out to grocery stores, and that younger children and older adults were cocooned at home or in communities, and so that seemed to make sense. What we are now seeing is the fastest growing segment of the population that is being impacted by COVID. The greatest number of new cases is coming from younger individuals, those who are 18 to 30, as they are perhaps more of a risk taker. They are doing more social distancing. They are more active. Their mobility is higher than the rest of society. And so we're now beginning to see the numbers increase in that segment of the population. So it is not surprising, given the number of young adults that Regency Oaks employs, to see this number begin to creep up. Again, we will continue to monitor what's happening with the staff and the residents in terms of who has flu-like symptoms and who is on a self-imposed quarantine for the protection and safety not only of the residents but of the staff here as well. I thought you might be interested in hearing an update on the number of residents and staff that we have tested here at Regency Oaks and what that results look like. In terms of residents, we have tested 73 residents, and only one of those has been positive. In terms of associates, we've tested 122 associates. So if you look at the overall numbers, we now have 2 positive cases, one associate, one resident, and then about 183 individuals who have been tested and are negative. So our numbers still continue to support a safe environment here at Regency Oaks. One of the things that I did want to talk about today was screening. Screening is so important. There's a series of 4 questions, and it's your temperature being checked. It is so important for 2 reasons. One, it helps us identify who might be ill. And secondly, if you contract the virus, that early warning symptom gives you a better chance of being able to successfully navigate the virus and beat it. You would think in a high risk population that our residents would want to be tested every single day. It is something we require for our staff. In certain areas, like our dining team, who have direct exposure to our residents, we are taking temperatures at the start of each shift and at the end of each shift, because we believe this is such a powerful tool that gives us an effective way of fighting this disease. Here at Regency Oaks, we have 456 residents, and last week we averaged about 75 residents a day who were stopping in, being screened, and having their temperature checked. I was really surprised that that number is that low, because this is such a useful tool in helping us beat back the virus and make sure that if there is an exposure, you have a quicker and speedier recovery. I want to take a moment to encourage every resident to take advantage of this free service. It's easy to do. You simply need to drop by the front desk. There is a form that you can complete. They will screen you for your temperature. There are a series of 4 questions. Have you had contact with anyone in the last 14 days that has been previously exposed? Have you traveled internationally? Have you visited somewhere where there has been a COVID outbreak? And are you exhibiting symptoms? The symptoms for COVID: cough, shortness of breath, high temperature, diarrhea, chills, body aches. I really want to. And the 4th question is, are you experiencing any of the symptoms of COVID-19? Shortness of breath, high fever, body aches or chills, a dry, hacking cough. I really, again, just want to reiterate, this is so important in helping to keep all of us safe. Social distancing, wearing a mask, getting a baseline on your symptoms and your temperature. Those are the 3 tools that Regency Oaks is relying upon to keep all of us safe. And just honestly, as a community, our residents can do a better job. 76 out of 456 residents is not a good showing, and I'm encouraging all of you to please take a time during the day. It's just 5 minutes to come down, have your temperature taken, and this will enable us to safely move to the next stages and the various phases of reopening. When we have a large, a quorum almost, and a solid database, that is what will give us the confidence and the ability to take the next step. So everybody have a great day, and we will see you on Friday. Thanks.